Follow me, please, in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic that stands indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Here.
Commissioner Broggie? Here. Commissioner Chavez?
Here.
Commissioner Crosswhite? Here. Commissioner Enegren?
Here.
Commissioner Engler?
Here.
Commissioner Garau?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Long?
Here.
Commissioner Tremblay?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now is the time for public comments. I have 2 cards. So we just call them up. Okay. First card I have is Aaron Dunkel.
Hi, my name's Aaron Dunkel. I live in Santa Paula. I'm here today just to offer my gratitude for the bus that has been providing service from Santa Paula to Upper Ojai in the morning and back. I've been riding it pretty frequently, and it has really been, well, a lifesaver and a pocketbook saver for me. Especially as gas is getting closer to $6 a gallon. It's been very convenient, not have to pay for gas. I am hopeful. I am very hopeful that the newly built construction road on the 150 might be a route that the bus could start taking. That would save a lot of time in addition to money. And I know it would be a lot easier on many families. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next card I have is from, I'm sorry, I can't read the last name, John.
Thank you, and sorry for the handwriting there as well. John Daly. I'm John Daly. I'm from Santa Paula as well, and I'm here as well just to address the mudslide ever so briefly. And I do want to begin with a thanks to all of you, and in particular to the supervisors and to Mr. Erickson for what you've done putting together community meetings over the last couple of months, and then getting the shuttle up there. I too have ridden that shuttle, and it's been a wonderful experience in a lot of ways. You get a lot of work done, and I'm grateful for that. The bus, yeah. Anyway, so it's been a lifesaver in a lot of ways. I do just want to bring up one more time. At the last meeting, I know that some, I think, commitments were understood to be made to kind of review the situation with putting a shuttle over the top, and I understand that a lot of progress has been made on that. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I, as the months roll on, and hopefully the road comes closer to being opened back up, I do hope that we just keep that pressure up and if at all possible, get a shuttle over the top of the slide. I am blessed to work in an air-conditioned office over the course of the day, and when I have to work late, I do miss the shuttle, and I do drive an hour. Sometimes it's better than an hour back around to where I work. Those 2 extra hours per day are hard for me. There are a lot of ag workers, and I think we all know this, but who do not work in those air-conditioned offices. And those people getting up early in the morning, getting out there, working in the orchards, and then coming back, it's even more dangerous for them to be on the road. So I do just want to, especially as the summer months come up here, just make sure we're pushing as much as we can to get that shuttle open. So, and again, I do want to end on a note of gratitude. All of us in Santa Paula who use that shuttle are grateful for the work that you've done to open things up. So thank you.
Thank you. Item 5, Caltrans report.
Thank you very much, Chair Judge and Director Erickson and Commissioners. Good morning. I'd like to start off by noting that this week is Public Service Recognition Week. And so I do appreciate the work of all of VCTC staff and Director and Commissioners who work in great partnership with the state. This is a sample of working across all levels of government to serve the transportation needs of the communities, and I do appreciate, Caltrans does appreciate the support and the dialogue. Also yesterday, Caltrans District 7 held its annual Workers' Memorial, and it is a ceremony to commemorate the 32 Caltrans District 7 employees who have lost their lives while working on the state highway. It is a reminder for all of us to make sure that we are driving safely, to not drive distracted, not under the influence, not texting, putting on makeup, eating, whatever it is that could take our attention off of the roadways. We just want to also make sure that when you see a work zone to please just slow down and take care, because we do have a large workforce of inspectors, maintenance highway workers, as well as construction workers who are working around the clock to keep our roads up and running. Speaking of keeping our roads up and running, Caltrans does stay focused on all of our emergency projects that we have in the district, starting with the drainage work at California Street on the 101. That work will be done in mid-June. Ven 33 north of Matilda Springs, because of the extensive work to put on soldier pile walls to prevent further rock falls, we anticipate that to take a little longer to be completed by the end of fall. And then most importantly, right now, State Road 150 is a area of our utmost focus. Crews are working 24/7, so I thank the residents for the continued patience to allow our crews to work very quickly. As mentioned, we had our last community update meeting on April 30th, and there were requests for shuttle services. And so you do see the crews that are out there putting in the work to try to at least open one lane by the end of June. However, we did take your feedback, and we've been working with the county emergency services, and they proposed a schedule for us to run a shuttle twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon. So thank you to VCTC, we're confirming that shuttle is workable, and we just need to make the final confirmations with our contractors to make sure that it is a controlled, limited time, but it will allow a little bit of relief, but at least we want to make sure that we do the proper communication so that residents understand that it is a limited shuttle. We do have to restrict access because it is an ongoing construction zone. And so, but we do understand that the hardship that not having any access at all has created for the community. So we do have this plan, and we'll hopefully be able to get that confirmation and get the shuttle rolling by within the next week or two. So we will confirm, I'm having our team just have the final confirmation of the contractor. And so we'll be able to send out communication next week to confirm that. And then at the same time, we are also looking at building a pedestrian path, because that was also a request, and we're working with the private property owner to just work on finalizing access. And then our estimate is that to get a path built, those probably take about a week. So we have those two dual paths working, as well as with the regular construction project. And I just do thank all of you for your patience, but keeping the dialogue going. And just know that you can contact us at any time if you have additional questions. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioner reports at this time? Yes, Commissioner Long.
Thank you very much. First of all, Gloria, fabulous. Your team has really been going way beyond active duty to ensure that our community is getting as much access as possible. I really want to appreciate the town halls, all the engineers. I know that that's not just, engineers and town halls talking to people is not the normal. They're very factual, let's get the data, but I just wanted to say how much they're listening and really appreciate today. We had public comments. The town halls have been fabulous, and everyone really is coming at it in a way of problem solving and how we can open and get dialogue. So I just want to say thank you. I know Supervisor Levere would be saying the same thing, and just gratitude on that. Another thing, we have our Ventura County Public Works have been working their tails off. I want everyone to know that we are working on Old Telegraph Road. That has been on the works. We've got Balcom Canyon that's closed, and we know how hard that is to add 20 more minutes to the commute. But everyone is really working diligently to try to make sure things get open. But safety, we have to remember, is number one. I know there's a time frame of, oh, well, that's 20 more minutes to my commute and all that other stuff, but there's a lot of safety that goes on for the roads, and I just want to make sure that people understand that. And then furthermore, Ventura County Transportation Commission, thank you for the busing and really working with Heritage Valley Transportation and trying to get all that moving. There's a lot of quick response that's been done, and I wanted to make sure people knew and to acknowledge that. So thank you very much.
You. Any others? Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to brag a little bit. I'm proud to announce that Gold Coast Transit was awarded the award Urban Transportation Agency of the Year by CalAct. CalAct is the largest transportation agency in the country, and I largely due, I think, to a lot of the outreach we've done to make sure that we really are not just providing the services, but making sure that everybody knows the services that we provide. And so to reduce every barrier to entry that we can. And so I just wanted to share that good news. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Chair.
White.
This is a little bit about some information that all of you received in front of you. It's called the X Games. And the reason I'm talking a little bit about the X Games is because really the X Games in Ventura is really Ventura County. It's not just Ventura, and it affects the whole county. We are doing a lot of work with the trains. We're doing a lot of work with bicycle corrals. We had a bicycle corral for people bicycling over to the Ventura Fairgrounds last year, and it was full. So we're making it 5 times bigger. Hopefully a lot of people on bicycles use it. Number of buses have been expanded. We're using shuttle services to get people to the fairgrounds, and we're working with VCTC staff on this too. So a number of people are involved in this in collaboration, and it's really going to be a big deal. It is the 28th, 29th, and 30th of June. A lot of the parking will be closed off because of the fair, because of the games. So we're trying to get people to use public transportation. So really excited about it, and as was said earlier, safety is number one. We want to make sure people get there safely and enjoy the X Games. So thank you very much.
You.
I have more of these if you want.
Anyone else? Okay. Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Judge, Commissioners. Happy early May, although it looks like we might be getting a little early June gloom today, but it's still a beautiful day out there, and I am excited to present the Executive Director's Report, which you have before you. Wanted to just touch on a few items. As you all know, when we did our 5-year strategic plan that was adopted last April, I emphasized that VCTC is really about partnerships at the core. Partnerships with all our cities, partnerships with the county. And I think the discussion today, our partnership with Caltrans, with Director Roberts and her team in this yet other challenging environment of the landslide on the 150. Again, just want to acknowledge that partnership and working together with county OES, with county staff and my transit team. And I do want to also recognize again our operator MV Transit that is providing the emergency shuttle service, and we're looking forward to modifying that to make it even better as this project hopefully continues to move forward quickly, so a lane can be opened. Next slide. I have a few slides here. May is also Bike to Work Month, and Bike to Work Day is May 17th, so just around the corner. This has become a bigger event each year. I remember when I was at the city of Oxnard, VCTC would sponsor this event. We'd have events at Plaza Park. There are events countywide. We are excited again to be working with our partners throughout the county, and we will be offering free fares on May 17th on Bike to Work Day in order to commemorate that. And just a reminder, as Commissioner White would probably want to remind you, when you are out there biking, please bike safely and wear your helmet. So a lot of stylish helmets out there. Don't be afraid to wear them. Next slide. And we also celebrated Earth Day last month at several different events in the county. Thousand Oaks, Ventura, Fillmore, in Moore Park. We had a wellness event in Santa Paula, in Simi Valley, and I know Earth Day was also celebrated by your cities and the county and on many fronts too. But we are excited to be able to distribute the annual Community Impact Report, our Ventura County Biking Guide, and other kind of fun collateral that we can hand out to promote VCTC's many mobility solutions. And just an update, each year we try to get better in coordinating big events that affect traffic across Ventura County. One of them is the Strawberry Festival coming up. Then we'll also have the X Games, as Commissioner White alluded to, in June. And part of that is coordinating Metrolink and Low-San Amtrak activities so that we can get as many people to utilize the train or a bus as possible to reduce the traffic. Part of that, this year, Amtrak Surfliner is offering a Kids Ride Free promotion for festival trips throughout their system, which would include the Strawberry Festival. And Metrolink will also be serving the Ventura downtown area at the beach stop by the fairgrounds for the festival. So again, each year we try to make it a little better. I know Commissioner Engler commented on the success of the X Games last year, that if public transit was as well coordinated as it was on the X Games last year, we'd have a lot more people using it. So it's not just about having good coordination for those days, but trying to just keep that coordination going throughout every day so all our systems can connect and work with each other. And that's it for the slides. I did want to acknowledge a new kind of member to the VCTC family. She's the new general manager for RATP Dev, which is our operator of our big blue buses, Gloria Housley, who's here in the audience. And Gloria, if you just want to stand up and introduce yourself. And she has a few team members here. If they want to quickly introduce themselves too, please.
Thank you. Lisa Martinez, Humberto Chavez, and Dominic Perez. So we are super excited about supporting VCTC and helping them be as successful every day to make sure our passengers get from point A to point B as safely and as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Gloria. Claire Grasty, our transit director, who has my old job, is actually up in Santa Barbara today with Commissioner McDonald at a Low-San meeting. So she would like to be here too, but many of her transit team are here, Matt and Aubrey and others. And as a regular rider of the big blue buses, it's a constant to keep making the service better every time we get out there and keep attracting new riders. But I'm confident that we're working well in that regard, and we're working well in that regard with all our other transit operators, including the largest transit operator, Gold Coast Transit, and all our transit partners in the county. So with that, finally, I attended with 5 commissioners the SCAG Regional Conference and General Assembly last week with Vice Chair Judge, Commissioners Crosswhite, Engler, Brogy, and Lopez. And it's always a good conference, but somehow it's nice sometimes to be with colleagues to realize we're all grappling in one way or another with a lot of the same challenges, whether it's transit ridership, whether it's congestion, whether it's trying to find more effective solutions to get people out of their cars and onto a public transit conveyance, or just the issues of housing and how they intersect with transportation. So we could probably have a long discussion just on those issues alone, but I want to thank the commissioners who attended, who also serve on important SCAG committees, because it's important. It's a very important relationship and partnership we have with SCAG also. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, moving on. Any additions or revisions to the agenda?
We have no additions or revisions to the agenda.
This time, anybody want anything from the consent calendar pulled for review? Go ahead, Commissioner Chavez. Get that? Commissioner Johnston?
I don't need to pull them. I just have some questions on E, F, and I, or no, H, E, F, and H.
How do you want to?
You can entertain the questions now and staff can respond to those. And I also need to make a comment into the record with regards to item 9L, which the commission is aware is the amendment to Mr. Erickson's contract. Under state law, we do need to announce the terms of the contract as well too. And so the contract that is in the commission packet today provides a 5% increase to Mr. Erickson's salary if approved by the commission, which would take his annualized salary to $253,916. It also adds a year to the contract. The commission will recall that, and that makes his contract effective through January 15th, 2028. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions on your items?
Thank you. So a question on 9E, this is the legislative update, and I'm kind of shoehorning it into this one because it refers to SB 125 and SB 125 projects. I know that one of our projects under SB 125 is putting money towards Metrolink to Santa Barbara. And there was a recent story that has everybody all excited that Metrolink is coming to Santa Barbara. I'm curious where VCTC is in helping make that happen.
Sure, I'll take that item. First, I'll say the story was probably a little premature, as sometimes stories are. We have been in discussions with SBCAG for over a year, and you commissioners may recall that there was a service running, a train service, a commuter train service between Ventura and Santa Barbara that ran for a few years, and then once COVID started in 2020, it was discontinued. So there have been, since that time, ongoing efforts to try to restore that service. The question is whether LoSan would continue to run it or whether it would be Metrolink. And Metrolink had stepped up and said they actually had trains to do it, because at the time LoSan indicated they didn't. So I feel like we're getting quite close and look forward to reporting back some updated news shortly.
Thank you. I would appreciate that, because it's always a little disconcerting when people start sending me links to news articles. And
Me and you both.
I'm taken by surprise. Yes. And it's not the first time it's happened on this exact topic.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Erickson. I have a comment only on 9F. This is the extension of Transit Outreach and Community Outreach Program Consultant Services Agreement, authorizing the Executive Director to exercise an extension of the agreement with Keltis Ventures for Transit Outreach and Community Outreach Services. Obviously, they have been doing a fantastic job. It makes sense to extend this. I will just suggest that in the future, when this comes up, to consider putting it out, and perhaps Gold Coast Transit might be an appropriate agency to respond to an RFP on this, because they're doing a fantastic job as well. And we at Gold Coast are looking to expand the services that we offer. And as you know, transit agencies need all the revenue they can get, and they need to expand their sources of revenue. So just something to consider. And then last is 9H. This is the Regional Transit Planning Budget Amendment. This is increasing the LC top revenues by $430,000 and SB 125 revenues to increase the college ride expense line item, which is fantastic. The youth ride free expense line item which is fantastic. And the staff report does a great job explaining why those are so successful, but it also has the and free fare days by $30,000, and the staff report doesn't explain why the $30,000 increase. I'm just curious about I hope it's not all for 1 day or something. How does that $30,000, what will that be used for free fare days?
Well, that actually covers several different days that are part of the transit kind of calendar that we develop with all the operators, including Gold Coast, to identify days, whether it's Earth Day or Rosa Parks Day, days that are official or have been recognized by other transit operators as days to try to promote free fares. So that's why it's that amount. There's several days. We can certainly get you some more detailed information on every day if that's not included in the staff report. But
Thank you. And I know at Gold Coast, we see an increase in ridership on free fare days. Is that true as well for VCTC?
it is, yes.
Thank you so much. Those are my questions and comments. Thank you, Chair.
Great. For your item.
Thank you, Chair. So, just want to say it's good to be back. It's been a little crazy at work, so I apologize for my absence. And I know that 9G was spoken at last month's meeting, and I wasn't in attendance, but I did have the opportunity to review, and I just had a few questions as to selection process for this particular bus model, as well as the fuel type that's being selected when there's a deadline for zero emission buses. So first question is, why this fuel type versus looking at something that at previous meetings we've already discussed, maybe hydrogen or even electric buses?
So the hydrogen fuel cell over-the-road coaches aren't developed yet, and so there aren't any options for us to consider. That still is our chosen fuel path as we presented last year. And we're actually we're working on partnering with Gold Coast Transit with on the development of their hydrogen fueling station. They're out to bid for right now. So we still are planning for that. But these, the immediate sensor, the easiest to procure, and we're using the CalApp contract to get those.
Now, I've made comments about it before. Foothill Transit in LA County, in that area, their traditional low floor buses are a little bit different. They swap out the traditional seats for more comfortable seats. I've made those comments multiple times for this commission that we look in that approach solely for that we have low floor buses versus this over the road approach. Now, I'm going to switch gears and put on my bus operator hat. There's a lot of problems with this bus, and in particularly with the ramp being towards the back of the driver. The driver, according to the specs from the website, from the MCI coach website, the driver is at a higher elevated compared to the low floor. The rear door is where the passengers with mobility devices will be entering. The issue with that is that a lot of our bus zones aren't always the best conditioned bus zones. So you may have a bus zone that only the front door can actually be accessible, and then the rear door is blocked by bushes, dirt, gravel, whatever you may have. So now it becomes a safety hazard for the bus operator, who typically spends many hours through VTT hours, through DMV testing to get their license and maintain that license. Did we think about that when we were going through this approach for this particular bus style?
Those are great comments and very good points. I was just taking notes. One thing I want to point out is that the current position of the wheelchair lift on our current buses is in the same position as where the ramp is. So operators do a pretty good job at navigating those tough stops to deploy the lift. I think having a ramp and having the ability to have a low floor for the ADA space, I think they'll be able to navigate those areas pretty well. I think it also may improve the ease of accessibility for those in wheelchairs or those who are disabled. So
Yeah, and if I could jump in, sorry to take executive director prerogative, but also as the former transit director, I think the point Matt made is really the most illustrative one, is that the current position is in that, the current lift position is in the back part of the bus anyway, but the main goal we had here was to make the experience better for the wheelchair rider. And I was pretty direct about having a low floor option for this over-the-road coach. So there's no perfect bus out there, as you know probably better than anyone here, but this was, we feel, the best bus based on our needs, and I'm comfortable with the recommendation.
No, and I agree. So when I first started with Metro, we had high floor buses, and part of our training for wheelchair securement, they actually put us in a wheelchair and made us experience what it's like riding on a lift. And believe me, it's one of the most scariest experiences, because that lift, once it's coming up, it starts nose diving in until you actually reach the top. So obviously, a low floor bus with a ramp is the ideal approach. My concern more is, did we fully think of every possibility? There are bus zones that we have, VCTC, Gold Coast, Simi Valley, Moore Park, wherever, throughout the county, even outside of our county, that the bus zone itself can only accommodate one door or the other. So,
and
regardless
we have looked into that also, just to note, one of the REAP grants, which we're hoping will be reestablished, is a comprehensive examination of all the bus stops in the county to find those ones, as you noted, where we have these deficiencies. And to the extent also, if the deficiencies are so great, to look at potentially moving the route or changing the route to accommodate the most reasonable and again, from the passenger perspective, the best boarding experience. But we have made, and in partnership with Gold Coast, which also I believe received a recent grant on bus stop improvements, we're constantly trying to get more of those, that we are taking that into account. And it was thought through. I personally went and reviewed all these recommendations after my very dedicated transit team did, and our partners. And again, I feel like this is about the best we can do based on where we are.
Okay. I don't have nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, can I get a motion on consent?
Tremblay, second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brokey?
Yeah.
Commissioner Chavez?
No on 9A, as I wasn't here for that meeting, and no on 9G.
Thank you. Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
I was absent, but if I can vote, yes.
Commissioner Gorell? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Long? Commissioner Tremblay?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move on to the discussion calendar. Item 10, unmet transit needs.
Good morning, Commissioner Judge, Commissioners. I'm Dolores Lopez, and I will be presenting the fiscal year 24-25 unmet transit needs, findings, and recommendations. Last month in April, excuse me, the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee and the Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee approved staff's recommendation to approve the fiscal year 24-25 unmet transit needs findings, that there are no unmet transit needs reasonable to meet. So this is a brief timeline of the unmet transit needs cycle. We take feedback year round, hold a public hearing, collect and analyze feedback received, and come back to this commission with our recommendations. We were here in February to hold the unmet transit needs public hearing. And since then, we have been busy analyzing the feedback and comments we received throughout the year. Today, we are here to provide those findings of the analysis and to make a recommendation. The cities included in this process are Camarillo, Fillmore, Moore Park, Santa Paula, and Thousand Oaks. In order to be qualified as an unmet transit need, the recommendation needs to be supported by 15 fixed route service requests or 10 requests for dial-a-ride services. The request should fall into certain categories and be reasonable to meet. Some of the categories include, but are not limited to, being safely able to conduct service that is not already being provided and must be beneficial for the general public. We held a dedicated public engagement period for the analysis. That timeline took place between December 15th, 2023 through February 15th, 2024. During this period, we actively engaged the community to share their comments through an online survey, which we shared through social media, e-blasts, flyers aboard buses, and posted in local newspapers. We held 3 community meetings in Camarillo, Fillmore, and 1 virtually, as well as the public hearing held here on February 2nd. This year, we saw an outstanding response with significant increase in the number of surveys and the comments received compared to previous years. We collected a total of 218 survey responses, which represents about 80% of our overall individual responses. A total of 468 comments were recorded from these responses. The top requests that met the criteria of an unmet transit need included services between Fillmore and Moore Park, services to East County Jail, and to the National Park Services, Satwewa and Thousand Oaks, and an overall demand for late evening and night services. There were other notable comments received that, although do not meet the unmet transit needs criteria, received high public interest. Those include service to Goleta Tech Park, which are outside of the county, expanded services into Los Angeles, and improvements to the VCTC Intercity and Gold Coast Transit District service, which is not part of this process. Although we did receive a substantial number of comments, ultimately no requests met the 15 comment threshold or 10 comment for dial-a-ride service thresholds. However, staff was happy to see the wide variety of comments provided this year that were comprehensive and provided a high level of insight for future planning. The need for extended service hours, higher frequency, better connectivity, and potentially microtransit services were recognized. Several transit improvements have been made because of the comments submitted through the unmet transit needs process. One of the most frequently requested services that has previously been considered an unmet transit need is the route between Fillmore and Moore Park. This service is a long-standing request through this process and is scheduled to start later this year. This is an action item with staff recommending that the committee approve the fiscal year 24-25 unmet transit needs findings, that there are no unmet transit needs reasonable to meet. This will allow TDA funds to be allocated for streets and roads purposes to the cities included within this process. And with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from Commissioner?
Only comment, sir. Thank you very much for the information. If you can go back 1 slide, I think it's important for everybody to realize that progress does get made with these comments, even though maybe it's not an unmet need, quote unquote, but that progress does get made because a lot of people in the community see that there's a need. A lot of people who are running buses, whether it's Gold Coast Transit or anybody else, that they see this information coming from the community who actually does ride the bus. So I appreciate that we see that there is progress made, even though unmet needs are not met on several of the concerns. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick question with regard to the transportation from Fillmore to Moore Park, and I'm asked about this on a regular basis. People are excited about it. I know a couple of VCTC meetings back, the month of August was thrown out there as a possibility. Does it sound like it's going to be later in the year than August at this point? Do you have any idea? Because I don't want to keep saying August if that's not accurate.
I don't have a definitive date, but it's going to be, Matt's going to come up.
Thank you.
We're planning for August.
Oh, great.
Yes.
And have to link it in with the school.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, and I want to express my appreciation as well that we're finally seeing that happen after serving on this commission for several years and hearing that come up at every unmet service needs meeting that we've had. I want to congratulate staff on getting such a strong response to this survey. Whatever you did it right. As somebody who's been through these, a couple times now, it's always surprised me how few responses we would get sometimes to some things. On that note, I appreciate the discussion you had in the staff report about the comments that we received about the 15 comment threshold. I think it absolutely makes sense to use the 15 comment threshold. I would just add an observation though, which is that, for example, Fillmore and Moore Park, you may have 8 people make a comment one year and it doesn't meet the threshold. They may not make the comment the next year because they feel like they weren't heard the first time and that they've already made their comment. And so over the span of time, you may well exceed the 15 comment threshold. And it just comes down to how you count things on the calendar. And so so again, this goes back to this slide that, it doesn't mean that it won't happen. It just means that we're not forced to do it, but always to bear that in mind. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Commissioner Crossway? Oh,
I support the comments that were just made about, I think it's fair to say, let me see if I can, when you say, I thought I heard you say there were no unmet transit needs, but what is really meant by that is there were no unmet transit needs that qualify for the process. I think it's important to state that, because until public transportation is as convenient as the private car, we're not having, of course there's unmet transit needs, because transit should be every 15 minutes everywhere. We're like in Europe, where you can stand on any corner and you get, or in cities where public transportation is successful, not just in Europe, but perhaps New York, where until we can live our lives without a car, we need to keep moving forward on public transportation. That's just the bottom line.
Yes.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Crossway?
Yeah, I'd been sitting here thinking something along the lines of what Commissioner Johnson said. What I was wondering is if there's anything because I can't remember right now, when we put out our link, so for next year when it comes around, is there anything in there that says, that lets them know that even if you made the comment last year and nothing changed, that they're encouraged to re-report it? Yeah. And I don't know how that would be said, but something along those lines, that if your need still hasn't been met, please submit it again. I don't know. So I don't know how that gets communicated, but just something to think about as we look at the process for next year, because it could be very likely, well, I submitted it the last 2 years, nothing happened, but doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't other people.
No, thank you. And just to jump in here really quick, that's something we can certainly look at adding and emphasizing, but we do really try to look at past comments and then that leads to, again, areas where we can make progress that isn't technically something that falls into the legal definition, but that's a good point to add. And I just wanted to take a minute and recognize Dolores Lopez. She's worked at VCTC for many, many years and part of the transit team under Claire Grasty and Matt Miller and Aubrey and others that are here. But she has really done a great job delving into the not only the unmet needs process, but also the railway maintenance obligations we have of dealing with our track ownership responsibilities along our Metrolink line. And she's been learning a whole lot about working with the railroad, right-of-way issues, in addition to that. So just wanted to recognize again one of VCTC's rising stars here. So.
And just one other comment. I noticed, I think there was only one comment in this survey, but I know I saw that there was one comment about the Halleck and Telegraph Road in Santa Paula. And I think that'll be an intersection that we need to watch for potentially expanding service out. I don't know if we're there yet, but I know that there's a potential for a fairly large apartment complex right up the street from that intersection. And then we've got the new development that's going in. And I don't know how many people in the new development would necessarily be taking transit, but certainly those apartments when they come online. So just keeping that area in view, I think would be important, because right now no transit in Santa Paula goes out past the end of what used to be the end of town.
Thank you. Yes.
And just to add to that, the potential for the move of Santa Paula Hospital or an addition to the hospital in the same location. So.
All right. Any further comments or questions? Can we get a motion on? Okay. Second, anybody?
Johnson seconds.
All right. Motion and a second. Get a roll call, please.
Commissioner Broggie?
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez? Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorel? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Long? Commissioner Tremblay?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to number 11, 2024 Title VI Program Update.
Hear me? Good morning, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Aubrey Smith, Program Manager of Regional Transit Planning, and I will be presenting an overview of VCTC's 2024 Title VI Program Update. And we'll be also recommending that the Commission approve the 2024 Title VI Program Update as an action item. So this slide is just an overview of what I will be presenting today, just an overview of discussion today. So we'll be talking about what is Title VI, kind of a high level of the requirements, a summary analysis based on census data, updates that we've made to the program, and then next steps. So what is Title VI? Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protects people from discrimination based on race, color, and national origin in programs and activities that receive federal funding. The FTA Office of Civil Rights is responsible for monitoring FTA recipients, Title VI programs, and ensuring their compliance to ensure that transit systems serve the needs of all the riders equitably and fairly, without bias.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, could you speak more into the mic? You could probably angle it, bring it a little closer.
How's that?
Thank you.
Better? All right. So this slide highlights the requirements for recipients that receive federal funding. So Title VI requires recipients to take reasonable steps to ensure that limited English proficiency individuals have meaningful access to services, which include language assistance, such as translation services, interpreters, and language assistant materials. Title VI defines LEP, or limited English proficiency individuals, as those who don't speak English as their primary language and have a limited ability to read, write, or speak or understand English. And failure to comply with this program or the requirements contained therein result in loss of federal funding or other legal implications. This slide is just a high-level summary analysis of the U.S. Census data that is used to assess the demographics within Ventura County for the Title VI program requirements. So here's just an overview of the data sources, which is again the 2018 to 2022 American Community Survey 5-year estimates, as well as the 2022-2023 California Department of Education English learner data. And so the ACS provides information on the number of people who speak English less than very well, and also referred to as limited English proficient persons. And the California Department of Education, that data compares student English learners populations with fluent English proficiency populations to determine the number of LEP persons to be served or likely to be encountered in a VCTC program, activity, or service. So just some key highlights from the updates to the 2024 program compared to the 2021. So we added Chinese Mandarin to our translatable written materials. They didn't necessarily meet the threshold or the Title VI threshold to trigger us including that or adding in to our portfolio, but Dallas Oaks Transit recently updated their Title VI program and added Chinese Mandarin to their translation services. So to be consistent and to expand our portfolio, we added Chinese Mandarin to what we will going forward for materials and translatable services and things like that. We also updated public participation plan to reflect the current demographics compared to 2021. So that has that data in the program update. And we also did a high-level assessment of the effectiveness of how VCTC communicates with LEP individuals, whether that be our transit operators or our customer service staff. And just to side note, this will also be further explored as part of our short-range transit plan. There is a task contained in that plan that will be assessing our partnerships and how we engage different communities. It's one thing our marketing team does a great job of creating flyers and materials, but it's another thing unless those materials and flyers and information get into the hands of those who really need it. And it's going to hopefully improve how we engage with historically disadvantaged communities within the county. So with that concludes my presentation. This is an action item for approval of the 2024 Title VI program update. And next steps will also, if the commission approves, will be to transmit this to the FTA by June 1st. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Sure.
Thank you for the presentation. And in the materials, there are recommended form letter responses to complaints. And it just made me wonder and ask the question: how many numbers of complaints have we historically received for failure to comply? Do you have that number by any chance?
Not off the top of my head, but I guess let me comply from the FTA or from complaints from customers.
From customers.
Okay, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I know it's very, very low, if any, but we can come back with that number.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeking a motion here?
Tremblay move.
Second. Second. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brokey?
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez? Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorell? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Long? Commissioner Tremblay?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Judge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair Judge, just as Aubrey's leaving, I just wanted to thank him again for his work on this. I was involved in doing the last update of this when I was still transit director, so it's a lot of work. I dare say I think he's probably done a better job, but it's we try to get better every year. But Aubrey has really been a great addition to VCTC also, especially on working with Metrolink in particular. But thanks, Aubrey.
Thank you. Moving on to number 12, Incident Responder Grant Program Round 3 allocation.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Andrew Kent, Program Manager for VCTC, and I have a quick presentation for you on item 12, Incident Responder Grant Program Round 3 allocations. So by way of background, in 1988, the California legislature enacted motorist aid statutes enabling counties to establish a service authority for freeway emergencies, or SAFE. VCTC serves as the SAFE for Ventura County. Our program consists of 428 emergency roadside call boxes, the Freeway Service Patrol Program, and the Incident Responder Grant Program. Funding is provided by a $1 annual vehicle registration fee on all vehicles in Ventura County. In June of 2019, the SAFE Board established the Incident Responder Grant Program. The grant provides assistance to local first responders for equipment related to motorist incidents on the SAFE network. And the grant provides, or we do a biennial review of the SAFE fund balance and provide the, or make the funds available for the grant when the SAFE fund balance allows. Rounds 1 and 2 combined have allocated $1.4 million in grant assistance to police and fire in Ventura County. For the Incident Responder Grant Program Round 3, $500,000 was budgeted by the SAFE Board, and the Round 3 program carries forward the grant eligibility criteria and follows the application process that was originally approved by the SAFE Board in 2019. The most important eligibility criteria is the demonstrated nexus to the SAFE network as defined in SAFE statutes. The grant was, the grant packages were distributed February 5th. A pre-proposal conference for the grant was held February 15th, and the proposal submission deadline was March 29th. This map shows the SAFE network in Ventura County as defined by SAFE statute. SAFE funds must be used for implementation and operation of a motorist aid system with a nexus to this network, which includes in Ventura County are freeways, highways, and major unincorporated county roads. And the nexus must be established for a grant application to qualify for funding. The Commission approved grant program guidelines and directed that a selection committee consisting of 1 VCTC staff member, 2 experts in incident response, and 1 local jurisdiction representative be established to review and score applications based on the criteria listed in this scoring rubric. The committee this year consisted of myself, Jeff Dean, the former sheriff of Ventura County, Tom Caddy, the former assistant chief of the Oxnard Police Department, and Paul Weinstein, a public works analyst for City of Thousand Oaks. The applications were scored and ranked by these criteria, and recommendations have been made to the Commission for funding. In round 3, we received 6 applications for funding, totaling $1.35 million in requested grant funds. This table displays a summary of the requests received in round 3, as well as a summary of the SAFE nexus justification. The requests include equipment to improve incident response time, equipment for collision investigation, equipment for traffic enforcement, as well as traffic control. Establishing the appropriate nexus is critical since the SAFE programs are funded by vehicle registration fees for the purpose of providing motorist aid services. The scoring committee did determine that one of the applications did not meet the SAFE network nexus justification, which was the helicopter fuel tender request, or funds for the helicopter fuel tender from the Ventura County Fire District. The remaining applications, the scoring committee moved forward and scored, And I have a few slides just highlighting a few of those agency requests that were received. Oxnard PD currently has 2 laser scanners, and this slide shows the kind of diagramming that these laser scanners can produce for scene investigation purposes. This image took, with the 2 scanners that the PD has, took several hours to create and required about 30 different scanner placements with the entire road in both directions, all 4 lanes being shut down for several hours. Oxnard PD is requesting funds for an additional 2 FARO laser scanners, and the application cites that this would reduce their scene diagramming time by about 50%. And just last year alone, Oxnard PD responded to 16 collisions that required intensive investigations and extended road closures. For the Port of Hueneme PD, they're currently developing a fully functional commercial traffic enforcement unit. And one request from the Port of Hueneme PD is for portable scales so the unit can perform commercial truck weight limit enforcement on Hueneme Road. And although Port Hueneme PD does not operate on the SAFE network, this map shows the importance that they play in traffic enforcement for vehicles traveling to and from the port. The map shows truck flows going to and from the Port of Hueneme. And Hueneme Road alone carries about 150 trucks a day. So although they don't respond on the SAFE network, traffic enforcement in the Port of Hueneme, or traffic enforcement being done by the Port of Hueneme PD would have a substantial impact on the rest of the SAFE network throughout the county. For the Camarillo Police Department and Oxnard Fire Department, they requested funds to further build out their signal preemption systems. Signal preemption technology uses emitters installed on emergency vehicles to force a green light at signal-controlled intersections that are outfitted with receivers. And signal preemption improves emergency response times by up to 25%, reduces responder intersection crashes by up to 70%. Since 2018, as the grant application cites, there have been 120 crashes in Ventura County involving emergency vehicles. And all other emergency vehicles that are outfitted with emitters, Opticom emitters, can make use of the system, including the Ventura County Fire District and American Medical Response contract ambulances. For the scoring committee's recommendation, the scoring committee recommends against awarding the requested funds to Ventura County Fire District for the helicopter fuel tender, which is a refueling tank truck that would allow for aerial refueling beyond the Camarillo Airport. And the committee determined that this was not eligible under the SAFE Nexus requirements. While the committee acknowledged the important role that aviation support equipment plays in responding to large-scale emergencies, the application to fund the purchase of a helicopter fuel tender did not demonstrate a nexus to aiding motorists traveling on the SAFE network. And staff does plan to debrief the Ventura County Fire District to assist with future incident responder grant program funding rounds. The committee assigned relatively high scores to the 5 remaining eligible applications and attempted to fully fund as many of the requests under the $500,000 budget constraint as possible, and attempted to emphasize equity in that distribution. So this table is a summary of the scoring committee's recommended allocation. The scoring committee's recommendation would fully fund Oxnard PD, Port of Hueneme PD, and Santa Paula PD. For the Oxnard Fire Department, the committee felt that their request was a little bit modest and recommends overfunding by $45,000, which would provide funds for an additional 5 Opticom signal preemption emitters, so they'd be able to outfit an additional 5 emergency vehicles with the signal preemption technology. And committee's recommendation would only fund about 30% of Camarillo PD's requests. However, it would still be the largest round three allocation at $144,148. They had a pretty sizable request up front. Staff's recommendation is to approve the committee's allocation. Additionally, the Ventura County or the VCTC Executive Director, as well as SAFE staff, recommends a budget amendment to fully fund Camarillo PD, City of Camarillo's request. Signal preemption technology, it's an important technology. It has significant benefits to first responders and Ventura County motorists. Full funding would go a long way to building out Camarillo's signal preemption network. That they would provide funding for 42 municipal intersections, 10 Caltrans controlled intersections, and 21 emitters for police vehicles. And again, Ventura County Fire District and American Medical Response could also make use of the system. So with the approval of the staff recommended allocation, the grant funds would be distributed in 30 days. And this table is a summary of staff's recommendation. Again, all agencies would receive full funding with an additional $45,000 in overfunding for Oxnard Fire Department. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in full support, and I want to thank the Executive Director and SAFE staff for the full funding recommendation. Just very quickly, let me give you a real-life example relative to the Opticom. In January of this year, we had a fire department responding at Las Posas and Earl Joseph Drive, and it was going code 3, its emergency lights, siren was activated. There was a witness later interviewed who was at that intersection, and all the traffic at that intersection was stopped. And the emergency vehicle, the fire unit, stopped before the intersection to make sure that it was safe to enter. And then it proceeded into that intersection in a basically a slow rolling manner. Another vehicle came through that intersection and hit the fire truck at about 30 to 40 miles per hour. Fortunately, there were no significant injuries, but what that did was to take that emergency vehicle out of service. And accordingly, there had to be another vehicle responding, another first responder responding, and that meant critical minutes, literally a life and death situation. And the Opticom service will allow those types of situations to be avoided. And having been the beneficiary many years ago, as Commissioner Long well knows, of a Code 3 trip to St. John's Regional, that Opticom service saves lives. So I want to thank the Executive Director and the SAFE staff for the full recommendation. And unless there were questions, I would be happy to move that item, move the staff recommended item.
Perfect. Unless there's any questions. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Did you say that there were 150 crashes of emergency vehicles, such as what Commissioner Tremblay just gave as an example?
According to the grant application, there have been 120 emergency vehicle crashes since 2018.
Okay, that's still very significant. Wow.
Yes, the committee's sentiment is that signal preemption is probably the most important piece of technology equipment that we can fund.
Coming from a law enforcement background, slamming into an emergency vehicle is not uncommon. All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Brogy?
Yeah.
Commissioner Chavez? Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrell, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Long, Commissioner Tremblay,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Judge.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, moving on to item 13, amend agreement with Rail Pros Incorporated for design service, reconstruct a portion of the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge on the Santa Paula branch line and amend the Santa Paula branch line program budget. There you go.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Judge, and members of the commission. I'm just going to hold this mic because I know I'm not tall enough to even reach it when I angle. For the record, my name is Amanda Fagan, and I serve as the Director of Planning and Sustainability here at VCTC. I'll start with just a brief context background on the Santa Paula branch line and the Sespe Creek Overflow Bridge, and then share an update on the status of bridge repair efforts and the staff recommendation. The Santa Paula branch line is a 32-mile multimodal corridor with 29 miles of serviceable track used for rail services, including freight, transload, tourist and excursion, television and film production, and rail car storage. This short line railroad connects the main line, Union Pacific, at the East Ventura Montalvo Metrolink station in the city of Ventura, and continues through the cities of Santa Paula, Fillmore, and the unincorporated Piru community. The branch line was originally constructed by Southern Pacific Railroad in 1887 and acquired by VCTC in 1995. In 2001, VCTC entered into a 20-year operating lease with Fillmore and Western Railway that expired in June of 2021. In December of 2021, the Commission approved a railroad lease and operations agreement with Sierra Northern Railway. And since January of 2022, Sierra Northern has been responsible for operating and maintaining the Santa Paula branch line. Sierra Northern operates and maintains the railroad tracks and right-of-way and provides freight and film service. Tourist and excursion services are provided through the cooperation of sister company Mendocino Railway. And in the interest of time, I won't get too much further into the history and operations of the Santa Paula branch line, and instead focus on the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge. The Sespe Creek Overflow Bridge is located at approximately milepost 423.44, just west of Fillmore, California. The bridge was constructed in 1969, so it's actually one of the newer bridges, and has a total length of 450 feet, consisting of 15 spans of 29 feet, 10 inches each. This aerial image shows the location of the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge, just west of Fillmore and alongside Old Telegraph Road. On January 4th, 2023, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency related to severe winter storms, flooding, and resulting damage. Then on January 10th, 2023, heavy rainfall from a series of storms led to flooding in Sespe Creek and its overflow area, which resulted in the washout of 3 spans of the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge, totaling approximately 90 feet on the westerly section of the bridge. On January 14th, the President of the United States issued a major disaster declaration for the California severe winter storms, flooding, landslides, and mudslides that included Ventura County, known as DR 4683. The line was taken out of service as the rail and rail ties are suspended between abutment 1 and bent 4. Reconstruction of the impacted bridge section is necessary in order to resume safe rail operations. The eastern third of the branch line is now disconnected from the main line, which includes the Fillmore Rail Yard and the city of Fillmore, where tourist and excursion rail services and the television and film production have traditionally been important to the local economy and to the community's identity. Freight rail customers, both current and potential future customers, have also been disconnected from the remainder of the branch line and main line. This slide includes representative photos of some of the damage to the bridge structures and also shows the incredible volume of water present during and after the January 2023 storms. To repair the railroad bridge, VCTC has elected to follow a phased process. Phase 1 focused on compliance with state and federal environmental laws and permitting requirements, design and construction to restore the pre-disaster design capacity and function of the railroad bridge, and to consider cost-effective mitigations to prevent future hazards. After a competitive selection process, VCTC executed a contract with RailPros in June 2023 to conduct the design, engineering, and permitting phase of the project. The focus is and always has been to ensure safe and resilient bridge reconstruction that minimizes the impacts to the community and to the environment. Survey, hydraulics, and hydrologic analysis, geotechnical analysis, cultural resources assessment, and biological resources evaluation were all analyzed and considered based on conditions following the 2023 winter storms, and the bridge was designed in consideration of these many factors. In November 2023, VCTC received and began review in coordination with Sierra Northern and with the County of Ventura of the design package. The bridge repairs plans were designed to be modular and replicable, such that repairs and reconstruction for the remainder of the bridge could be completed as additional funding becomes available. 3 design alternatives were considered. VCTC ultimately selected Alternative 1 based on the geotechnical and hydrological report findings, technical feasibility, risk reduction, and in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. The project includes 2 new bents, 2 new pier caps, and 2 new 49-foot spans, a new abutment and wing walls, and erosion protection. The new bents are designed to be parallel with the flow of water, and each bent is comprised of 2 cast-in drilled hole 6-foot diameter piles. The new pier caps, abutment, and wing walls will be cast in place concrete. By lengthening 2 spans to 49 feet, rather than matching the existing span lengths of 30 feet, an intermediate bent or pier is eliminated, resulting in quicker construction and reduced costs. Because there's 1 less pier in the channel, the hydraulics of the bridge are not negatively impacted, and the design provides risk mitigation for future flood events. At the time, based on that initial design, preliminary cost estimates were evaluated. At the beginning of the disaster, the preliminary cost estimates ranged from $1.4 to $2.3 million. However, after the geotechnical and hydrological evaluation of the post-disaster site conditions was completed, and based on the results of the design process and looking at current market conditions, construction was estimated at approximately $7.1 million, with estimated total cost to repair the bridge, including design, agency oversight, permit fees, and operator costs, at approximately $12 million. The alternatives to the design that were considered, including an in-kind replacement, actually had substantially higher estimated costs. In November of 2023, VCTC released a request for proposals to provide construction management services, with proposals due in December. The scope of work includes engineering inspection, environmental support, materials testing, and surveying, necessary to verify that the project is constructed in accordance with plans and specifications. The Commission approved a contract with RailPros Construction Management Division on February 2nd, 2024. Then, unfortunately, on the following Monday, February 4th and 5th, the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge sustained substantial additional damage during a series of storms. Oops. Resulting in approximately 50 feet of additional loss of earth and rock behind the west abutment of the bridge. Later that week, on February 9th, staff requested that the RailPros design team take a look at the additional damage that had been created by the storms and provide guidance on how to address this additional damage and its impact to the repair design plans and specifications. So the item before you today seeks commission approval of an amendment to that RailPros contract to address the additional damage to the railroad bridge. During the month of February, staff spent considerable time and effort to respond to requests for information and to provide additional documentation to FEMA in advance of a February 29th deadline to submit project information for the next round of FEMA project development and review. Staff completed and submitted 2 projects for the next round of FEMA review also during February for the district-wide debris removal and the non-debris small projects at milepost 412.65 and 417.85. Staff also responded to a FEMA request for information related to legal responsibility for the repair of the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge. Since the initial determination that we received in late March that the project was ineligible for FEMA public assistance that we talked about at the last commission meeting, which we believed was based on a misunderstanding of the railroad lease and operations agreement, FEMA has since moved the project forward within its project development and obligation process, which is good news, indicating a recognition of VCTC applicant eligibility for funding. Then on April 13th, the President of the United States issued another major disaster declaration for the period of January 31 through February 9th, 2024, that includes Ventura County. The additional damage that was sustained to the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge falls within this time frame. Staff participated in the Cal OES applicant briefing just last week, and we submitted the request for public assistance to FEMA and the application for assistance to Cal OES also later this week in advance of a May 13th submission deadline. To give you a better sense of the additional damage that was sustained by the bridge and the area surrounding it during the February 2024 storms, the photo on the left was taken following the initial storms in the summer of 2023. The photos at the center and the right show the erosion of earth and rock that took place west of the abutment. I was going to try to use the laser pointer, but I don't want to mess it up. Before construction of the bridge and track repairs can begin, additional survey and analysis of the current post-storm conditions are needed to determine the type and quantities of fill material to repair the damaged track structures and to determine protective measures for near and long-term resilience of the railroad bridge. That also helps to prevent further damage to Old Telegraph Road and the private property that's located both up and downstream of the railroad bridge. The photo on the left here on the slide helps to illustrate some of the complexities that are involved in making these determinations, sparing you a lengthy discussion of the behavior of alluvial fan waterways, such as Sespe Creek. This aerial image shows how the creek channel has begun to fan out. And when the channel reaches the levee that protects the city of Fillmore, you can see it sort of bounces back to the other side of the channel, causing the erosion to the channel to the west. But in order to better understand these conditions and design a resilient structure and protective measures, both temporary and for the long term, further hydrology and geomorphology study is needed for the areas both up and downstream of the railroad bridge. Whereas the initial project evaluation focused on the railroad right-of-way, this additional analysis will look further up and downstream. Environmental review and permitting efforts to enable bridge reconstruction, of course, began before the subsequent damage and continue today. VCTC initially recorded a CEQA notice of exemption on August 24th of 2023. The 35-day statute of limitations to challenge VCTC's determination that the project is exempt from CEQA expired on September 28th of 2023, with no challenges having been filed or received. However, based on council guidance, VCTC filed an updated notice of exemption to incorporate the updated major disaster declaration information from the February 2024 storms. And that notice was filed actually on Monday of this week. And couldn't be filed until we received the presidential declaration on April 13th. With regard to stormwater pollution prevention, it remains assumed that it was assumed that the project qualified for a rainfill erosivity waiver, which waives a full stormwater pollution prevention plan because the calculated R factor is less than 5 and the disturbance area is less than 5 acres. However, this determination must be reevaluated and validated based on the current site conditions and the project impacts. Either way, the project will include a list of best management practices for reference in permit applications. VCTC has been advised that the project does not require a permit from the Watershed Protection District under an ordinance WP2 section 203. However, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers section 404 and 401 permitting processes are required, which includes a National Historic Preservation Act section 106 compliance, which has been completed, and formal consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in compliance with section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. These formal consultation processes do have a defined time frame, but they do occur between two federal agencies. So VCTC is sort of an interested bystander in that process. So staff and our consultant teams considered the complexities and the timelines associated with the permitting and the many other moving parts that take place in order to design, permit, fund, and actually construct these bridge repairs relative to agency resources and competing workloads. Two options emerged. Both options are further detailed and the reasoning behind the staff recommendation contained in the staff report. The first option, which staff recommends, would undertake emergency repairs to stabilize the embankment using a Regional General Permit 63, known as an RG 63 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and to proceed with the hydraulics and geomorphology analysis and design support upon execution of an amendment to the design contract with RailPros. Given the limited construction window in the Sespe Creek from May to September, it is unlikely that this approach would result in reconstruction of the bridge this summer, pushing reconstruction out to the summer of 2025. The second option would forego emergency repairs under the RG 63 permit and instead prepare and release an invitation for bids to begin construction this summer. While this option may have the potential to restore rail service by the end of the calendar year, it is unlikely, and this approach risks further erosion and damage to the tracks as the channel moves westward. It would include substantial uncertainty as to the quantities, materials, and design for the erosion repair and protective measures contained in the invitation for bids, necessitating a contract amendment, potential rework, and increased costs. And even under the best estimates of environmental permitting timeframes, pushes the actual start of construction to August at the earliest, which would require work in the watercourse outside of the dry period. And this, of course, potentially affects Endangered Species Act compliance and or leads to costs associated with demobilization and having to remobilize the construction contractor to complete the project. The proposed amendment to the RailPros contract acknowledges that the tasks are required, that are required are within the overall scope of services and qualifications of the assembled team, but exceeded the level of work anticipated with the additional damage in February of 2024. Given uncertainties related to the findings of the various stages of survey and analysis that are needed to proceed, the proposed contract amendment shifts to a time and materials basis for the remaining work beginning February 9th. Amendment number 2 extends the contract term, expands upon the scope of work to include an analysis of the hydraulics, geomorphology of Sespe Creek, additional design support for necessary stakeholder coordination, surveying of the channel section immediately down and upstream from the railroad bridge and the new scoured section, and utility identification within the additional project boundary limits. And includes a not to exceed amount of $1,301,952 for this phase of work. Due to the RailPro's specialized expertise related to the Sespe Creek Bridge and the time-sensitive nature of identifying and implementing emergency repairs resulting from the February storms, staff determined that this additional scope needed to be added through an amendment to the existing RailPro's contract. The staff recommendation includes an amendment to the Santa Paula Branch Line program budget as detailed in the staff report and is shown on the screen. Increases to the consultant services, staffing, legal services, and non-rail maintenance categories are also included, along with the required fund transfer authority that's necessary to execute the budget amendment. Based upon commission acceptance of the staff recommendation, the updated project schedule would sequence as shown on the slide. We will continue to provide regular updates to the commission throughout the process, and we'll also continue to look for opportunities to expedite the design, permitting, and construction timelines as possible. And with that, I'm happy to field any questions that you may have, assisted, of course, by Mr. Mattis and Mr. Erickson as needed.
Yeah, I have a question. So because we still don't have FEMA approval, does that push our timeline for completion? Because I know at one point we had needed to have it done by the end of summer of this year in order to qualify for the funding.
So we have already begun the process to request an extension to the project completion deadline from FEMA. And we will also be working with Cal OES on that extension process as well. FEMA does not look favorably upon projects that are completed contingent upon the receipt of FEMA funding. So we need to be able to demonstrate that the project will, needs to be completed whether or not FEMA provides that funding. So that's why the project does include forward funding from our STA. And we, again, will continue to pursue reimbursement from FEMA. FEMA has, while they have not yet completed the obligation process, the project has moved forward to the kind of next steps within the FEMA review process. They've assigned they call them a CRC specialist, and that person is working on actually developing the project description from FEMA's perspective based on the hundreds of documents that we've already submitted. So it's an iterative process with FEMA to go through the approval process. It's not like a regular grant application where you develop everything up front and then they give you a clean answer. It's you just continue to work with them back and forth until all is done and audited and final. So we are doing our best to work with FEMA closely to make sure that we do everything we can to see that this is funded.
All right, thank you.
All that are getting the bridge done in December. That's what everyone said. January 2023, we'll try and get this bridge back together sometime in 2023. So now 2 years later, I'm very frustrated with government because 2 years later, we're having to hopefully, and Amanda and her team are doing that. But I don't know, all of the things on the screen is very frustrating that still can't get this project done. And I don't know who, state, federal level can help us with this, but I'm really on so many points. So we're going to get this and Santa Paula and Fillmore and tourism. Like with FR 150, we pushed on that with tourism for
construction and Public Works has done an emergency to strengthen it, to get one lane done, but, that's not put a Band-Aid on it, and don't stress my focus very much, but I will today on this, and if there's anything that I can do, please contact me, or if you think of anyone I need to talk to, or whatever, our whole business is struggle every day. This is something that I can get to help our businesses, and I think it's really important. Promising that is gonna be done, and that people in the construction or how we just get this done. Those two comments don't match. Figure out how do we get this match so we can blend it with the building. So, anything.
Oh, Amanda, I'll take that. At first, Commissioner Long, I share your frustration with this. This project has probably occupied the lion's share of not only Amanda's time and her team and my time. That being said, I feel like the recommendation before you is the most expeditious path forward, respecting the risk that VCTC is assuming as a public agency in this process. So I just want to remind the commission, nothing was stopping our contractor, Sierra Northern, from taking on this bridge replacement themselves. They chose not to do that at this point. So they could have done that themselves. They would not have been likely awarded FEMA reimbursement. So that was why VCTC is doing it. Fortunately, VCTC is in a strong enough financial position that we have the STA fund balance and reserves to cover this project, even if FEMA does not reimburse us. But this is not without some risk on our part. This is calculated risk to move this project forward the most expeditiously that we can. So and that is part of our agreement with Sierra Northern, and General Counsel can elaborate more on that, but it had specific provisions in acts of God such as this, that VCTC did not have to replace the bridge. We are choosing to do this to help them, to help the community, to help this process move forward. But we are assuming risk in that process.
Voice is loud enough. We deal with private public partnerships all the time. We understand that funding has to be not processed through one agency to get to the other. And does Sierra Northern have any contractors or construction people that they deal with railroads on a national wide that could help us navigate this? Because I understand the risk, and I don't want VCTC to hold as much risk or to be as conservative, maybe it could be stated, as those that maybe have gone through these experiences before and have rebuilt. Like, is there someone that's gone through this, any agency before that's gone through this that we're researching and getting to help us so we can get this done quicker and with some more certainty that we are doing it correct? Because I understand that could be a liability.
And I will tell you, we had a meeting just this week with the Rail Pros team, which includes several professionals who have rebuilt railroads, who have been involved in this process, who have worked not only with FEMA, but worked for different railroad companies. And Sierra Northern was part of the meeting too. We had a very, I think, robust discussion about the paths forward here. So in answer to your other question too, we are also moving forward with a federal lobbyist to assist us with FEMA.
Yeah.
To the greatest extent possible, ensure that we are refunded by FEMA, and to assist us with any other processes on the state or federal side. The team in the Rail Pros contract, I believe, is about as good as you can get in terms of the rail experts that are available. And like I said, we are in a consultative and cooperative negotiation with Sierra Northern throughout this process. But I just wanted to reiterate that point, that based on the agreement that the commission entered into with Sierra Northern in December of 2021, there were specific provisions for this type of situation. And I don't think we're being overly cautious. Believe me, I am someone who will push as far as legally and responsibly possible to get projects done. And I don't know if General Counsel Mattis wants to add anything. Maybe. Hopefully I haven't said anything.
No, the only thing that the portion that I would add is that, as Martin has indicated, we have been looking at every option to try to move things, but this is, it's impacted, the schedule is impacted both by the permitting side and the construction side, if you will. And you have to have the permitting side finalized. That's where the lobbyists can assist in trying to get the necessary approvals, getting the consultation done as quickly as possible. In addition to that, from the contracting side, because of the limited windows where you can do construction, we're looking at what opportunities can we pursue to kind of expedite the procurement of the contracting. So can we go to sole source because it's an emergency? Can we look at those types of options, in particular if we have a window that would allow the construction to take place? The schedule that Amanda has brought forward today, is anticipated to be the one where you can reasonably anticipate all of the preliminary steps have been done, but to the extent any of those can be expedited, we're trying to do that. And Amanda can speak about this, but she and the RailPros team, in consultation with us and with Martin, we've been looking at different schedule options to see whether there are any windows where this work could be done faster and still meet the proper time periods for doing construction in a bridge repair circumstance.
Right, and I really appreciate that. And there's frustration also from constituents that live off Grand that have had their land eroded because water's ricocheting off a levee and then shooting over and fanning down. They don't know who owns the property underneath that could get graded so that it could be dug out. You know how erosion happens, it fills up, and then the ground underneath the bridges are tighter and closer and closer, and it needs to get dredged out. That needs to be done too. I just would really appreciate to collaborate with the County Public Works and try and figure this out, because this is not I agree you're gonna get it fixed, but there's some bigger issues there. And I wanna make sure that we have everybody in the group. We do really good with that, so I just embrace that.
And Commissioner Long, I think, to your point about collaboration with the county and with watershed protection, the work that is being requested here in the amendment provides the scientific and modeling data that all of these, professional engineers, of which I certainly am not, can look at to make those recommendations about the types of both short and long-term improvements that need to be made to the watershed and to the bridge to prevent future disasters. And I would also add that, we were in place to proceed with construction this summer until we had the additional damage in February. So barring that, additional act of God, we would have been building that bridge this summer. And I assure you, no one wants this bridge done more than I do. I never in a million years thought I would be rebuilding bridges in my career here at VCTC or anywhere else. So we are doing everything we can to move forward expeditiously, looking at permit flexibilities, but also listening to both the design side and the construction management side of our teams that are advising us to make sure we do this the right way, and make sure that it doesn't cause unintended impacts to other property owners, both up and downstream. I mean, that is a concern for us. We also, we only own 100 feet there. So any work that would need to be done on adjacent property owners, that all has to be coordinated and permitted by the property owner. So all of that requires stakeholder coordination. It takes time. So we think this is the best way to proceed, considering all of those complexities and challenges. doing our best to get this bridge done as quickly as possible.
And I completely appreciate that. And I voiced the concerns here today because we come from all sorts of different cities, and we need to be learning about this stuff because this could happen to you. And we need to figure out how everyone has a friend, colleague, and whatever we can do, I would really urge that. So thank you.
Oh, and thank you, Commissioner Long. And I just also point out that in the consent agenda today, I think it was 9D, the commission approved our application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research for the Climate Adaptation Planning Grant Program, and we will be looking at identifying these types of challenges in advance, and figuring out how we can have projects that prevent these kinds of things from happening, but also having a good process in place to follow when these types of disasters occur, and also things like State Route 150 and Malcolm Canyon and others. We want to make sure that we understand all of the moving parts and try to have a better roadmap moving forward to respond in the future.
Commissioner Tremblay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Absolute hats off to you, Amanda, to you, Martin, to all the VCTC staff and our contractors on this. The work, I know, based on my professional experience, is incredibly time consuming. And you didn't think that you were, and you have done exemplary work, and I know you didn't think this is what you're going to be spending a lot of your professional life on. That said, I share Commissioner Long's frustration. Can you go back, Amanda, to the slide relative to the environmental permitting? And I have a very specific comment. I think, not supplanting my judgment for Mr. Mattis, I think that's the right thing. We filed an updated notice of exemption, but specifically speaking to the Section 404 permits, and in particular to the Section 7 consultation and somewhat to the Section 106, having spent years of my life and a great deal of gray hair or hair loss with federal agencies on permitting. What I'm wondering is, we had an initial scenario whereby we lost a certain segment. What I am of the channel, or because of the river channel changing, what I am hoping is, here's the question: to your knowledge, is NIMS through USFWS, are they approaching this such that there is a brand new scenario that has to be evaluated from an environmental perspective, or can they build upon the work that has already been done and simply treat this as an add-on? And I'm thinking about this from speeding it along from a permitting standpoint. And then I have a very specific recommendation to make, but can you speak to that aspect?
Yes, so the work that has already been done will be supplemented and amended to as much as possible, adding on the additional damage. But where it becomes particularly tricky is in terms of the long-term solutions, which we anticipate will go beyond the railroad right-of-way, and then have to necessitate partnerships with watershed protection and with adjacent property owners and others. The kinds of solutions like river retraining, the use of jetties, similar to the way that Santa Paula Creek is. They use small tows or jetties, I'm not sure the right word for it, that slow down the water in the creek to protect the surrounding properties. But we don't know what that solution yet will be. And so we're anticipating that long-term solution will require additional permitting work. We will initially be focusing on the permitting of, rebuilding the bridge, making sure that it is at least resilient and protective within the footprint and the sort of kind of two-phased approach.
No, and I fully support that, and thank you for that. What I'm specifically focusing on in particular is the Section 7 consultation and relative to the the biological opinion. Because I don't think that the biological opinion needs to be fundamentally altered because of the additional opening on the river channel. The biological, so what I'm hoping, what I'm expressing is a hope, fervent hope, that the USF, FWS, and to the extent NIMS is involved, I think NIMS would be involved, correct? Right? So what I would hate to see happen is for NIMS to step back and say, we have an entirely new scenario, and we have to throw out our draft BO and write a new one. That doesn't need to occur. This was simply a supplemental amount of damage, but it doesn't, in my view, fundamentally impact the criteria and what goes into the biological opinion. So my fervent request is that we focus on that as well, because that tends to hang up a lot of this. And my specific recommendation is, from a federal advocacy standpoint, we make, let's see, the congressperson for there, is that Salute or Julia?
It's Brownlee.
It's Young. That we have some specific outreach to Congresswoman Brownlee's office on this issue, and that our federal advocates have a conversation with NIMS. Is it the NIMS Long Beach office? I know they don't like to be told what to do, but I would appreciate if our federal advocates could really focus on this Section 7 consultation item from that standpoint. So that's just a recommendation. So, and thank you, because I know you didn't think about undertaking this as a substantial part of your professional career. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
And I just like to add, for the timeline of this, it's important to keep the dates in mind. We're about 1 year and 4 months into this. The first storm was in January 2023, and the second storm, which expanded the scope of this project considerably, was in February of 2024. So again, everyone concerned, want this project finished as quickly as possible, and we understand the concerns. But I just wanted to reiterate those two key points, because as Amanda noted, had that second storm in February 24 not have happened, we would probably be having a different update for you today.
Well, and I will throw out, we do have a past water lawyer on our commission, and I use his resources in a lot of different ways. So that's why I bring this up as well.
He was also an excellent part of the ad hoc committee on one of our previous issues with this railroad, just as you all recall, that was thankfully
Thank you, Tom.
brought to a successful conclusion in December of last year. So.
Okay, any more questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. I do have a few, and I would just like to say to Commissioner Tremblay, your joke about the hair loss. Well, then look at poor Mr. Erickson and the work he has to do with regulators. I think it's important, that reminder that, let's say there had been no red tape and we'd been able to start construction in summer of 2023. When that storm had come along, we would have been in a world of hurt as well. And so, we really are looking at two separate events. I wanted to share, a couple things about FEMA. For those of you that haven't really paid a lot of attention, FEMA always gets a pretty standard allocation for their disaster relief fund of about $20 million. And it used to be that they would go 3, 4, 5 years where that was enough. But what's been happening now is they go 3, 4 years where there have to be supplemental appropriations, doubling or tripling what the DRF is paying out. And so, it's obviously not just our bridge. They were dealing with the Maui wildfires and a big hurricane in 2023. And so, it may seem a little blue sky, but I certainly appreciate that FEMA wants their money to go to places that are going to build the project regardless, because that tells them that this is something that has to be done. If it wasn't worth it to us, it wouldn't be worth it to the taxpayers across the country. And so I certainly appreciate that. Ms. Fagan, I want to thank you for all your work with FEMA and with pushing back, but in particular, it's not obvious, but reading between the lines, I want to thank you for pinning them down to make sure that when it moved ahead in the portal, that it wasn't an oversight, that it wasn't something that just happened by mistake, that you got that April 11th email in which they indicated, no, it meant that they agreed with the updated legal analysis and that it is going forward. Because I know with a federal agency, it's not always so easy to get an assurance like that.
Thank you.
And so you think building a bridge is hard, getting a commitment from FEMA is probably harder. I think what you were referring to elsewhere were spur dikes.
Yes,
that are
thank
used,
you.
That are used. Has the Army Corps of Engineer, I know we've spoken with them, we see some massive problems. As you put it, it's an alluvial fan. It's a meandering channel. It can vary wildly. Has the Army Corps of Engineers, I know channelization is a bad word. Modern techniques for channelization have improved the impact downriver. Have they looked at spur dikes? Have they looked at channelization? Have they looked at things they could do, since we've got two bridges in a relatively short area? Have they looked at improvements to the channel?
So it's funny you should ask that question today, because I had the opportunity last week to participate in an Engineering with Nature workshop out at Point Mugu with led by the Army Corps of Engineer. They're one of their research divisions, and principally the focus of that workshop was on the impacts of down coast sediment supplies and sand supplies, which has an impact to our whole Ventura County coast and beyond. And I took that opportunity to grab the research scientists from the Corps of Engineers and show them the pictures of the Sespe Bridge and of I showed them the map, and they had some great suggestions about which types of programs within the Corps of Engineers that we could reach out to ask these very questions. So those are things we will be following up on to see if there's any whether demonstration project opportunities or just leveraging their research capabilities and other resources to try to improve this process, both looking at nature-based solutions, as you suggest, alternatives to channelization. So we're certainly aware and following up on those types of opportunities with the Corps of Engineers and others.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, on the staff report, I agree with staff's recommendation. The one that got me was the discussion about the timeline, that even if we heard, we might not be able to start until August, and that would not give us a lot of time during the dry months for construction. And I'd hate for us to try to get something going and then it falls apart because of another wet winter, a wet fall. So thank you so much again for all your hard work. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I apologize, I have to get out in just a second, but Manuel Maharas in my office will follow up. We have another rail bridge on Ferris in Santa Paula that we are getting constituent calls on in regards to property damage and potential injuries. So I just wanted to let you know.
We are following up on that Texas Lane Ferris Drive bridge as well. So my staff has been working with Sierra Northern already to address that.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thank you.
And I do support this. So thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one technical question on this, and I know Supervisor Long may have information, and certainly Amanda, I think, does too. But one of the obstacles in talking about bringing in the engineers and dealing with the erosion aspect of it is as Supervisor Long mentioned, the private property owners that are there. And I understand there's one family in particular who owns, my understanding is, right across the river itself, and they are refusing to be cooperative with anybody at this point. But I'm wondering, I don't see any way around that, or unless you have any ideas, or you looked into it already, on how we circumvent this private property that's owned in order to actually deal with the erosion.
We have not yet, forgive the pun, crossed that bridge, but it is something we'll certainly be aware of as we move forward.
Okay. Any further questions? I need a motion. Second? Second. I have a motion and a second for this agenda item. Call for a vote, or call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Broggie?
Yeah.
Commissioner Chavez? Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorell?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tremblay?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Judge?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on to 14, the Santa Paula Branch Line monthly update for April. Amanda?
We can keep this one pretty brief.
And thank you. Again, I'm Amanda Fagan, Director of Planning and Sustainability at VCTC, for the record. And since you just heard me talk about the Santa Paula Branch Line and the Sesame Bridge for like an hour, I will keep this extremely brief. I just wanted to highlight some upcoming engagement opportunities on the Santa Paula Branch Line trail planning and design work that is currently underway with led by the City of Ventura. They are conducting community and stakeholder engagement for that 4-mile section from Montalvo Station out to Saticoy. And there are 2 public meetings coming up. There's a virtual public meeting on May 15th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And folks who are interested can register on the city's project website and receive the link to participate in that workshop. And then there's an in-person public meeting that will be held on May 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Jose Flores Community Center in Saticoy. And more information is available on this project and all the engagement opportunities at the city's website, which is cityofventura.ca.gov/SPBL. And we're also, continuing to await a response from SCAG regarding our surface transportation block grant application that would fund the update to the master plan and environmental impact report and environmental impact statement for the section from Saticoy out to Piru. We're hoping to hear back from SCAG in June, so hopefully more information to share about that project moving forward in the near future. And then lastly, just a quick update on, and I won't verbally address this, but updates on our various project efforts related to the Santa Paula Branch Line. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and I did provide a rather lengthy staff report this month, so thank you.
Any questions for staff? All right. That's just to receive and file. Thank you very much. General Counsel report.
Nothing to report today. Thank you.
Thank you. Agency reports. I'll start off with the SCAG report from Southern California Association of Governments. We attended the regional conference last week. A lot of members from VCTC were there. Martin was there. They had pretty good breakout sessions on the state struggling with the way they're going to move away from a gas tax and go to some other kind of tax. They're still trying to figure out how to do that, so we're waiting to see what their plan is. There was another good breakout session on getting people back on your transit, so that was pretty enlightening. I mean, there's a lot of progress being made right now. People are getting out of the COVID haze and starting to ride the buses again across the board in a lot of other transit agencies, so that was good news. Other than that, we did elect new officers for SCAG, and we approved the budget for next year. REAP 2.0 is still on hold because the governor hasn't made up his mind on whether that's going to get cut yet or not. One of his staffers had declared to the SCAG staff that he is trying really hard not to cut that. I don't know what that means, but we'll see. Again, if I have more update on that in the next month, hopefully I'll let you know. That's it for SCAG. Now we go to Southern California Regional Rail Authority, Metrolink.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. A couple of quick things. First of all, on April 26th, the MetroLink Board approved the request to transmit the FY25 budgets to all the county transportation commissions. Just so you can keep this in mind in context, the proposed total operating revenues for FY25 are $68 million. The expenditures are $332 million. So you look at that math and you go, where's the rest of the money going to come from? Comes from VCTC and the rest of the transportation commissions to the tune of about operating support of about $264 million. So it's a lot of money. VCTC's share of that from both an operating and a capital standpoint is in excess of $30 million. So it's a substantial amount of money. We pay very close attention to it. I also want to do a shout out to Sally and finance staff relative to the working capital policy, which has been in process at MetroLink. Our staff, VCTC staff, spends a great deal of time dealing with MetroLink in terms of the requests coming back from MetroLink and the reimbursements coming back. I won't go into it at length other than to salute Sally for her patience and our finance staff for their patience. And then finally, Mr. Chair, all that has nothing to do with MetroLink, I note that our executive director has said that he's a quote unquote a regular rider of the blue buses. But if you go back to the slide on bike month, on the bike to work month, you'll notice that there's a picture of him in the upper right hand corner wearing a very stylish blue helmet. And the only other thing I want to add is that in that picture, he's reading a map. So I'm wondering if from a transportation and mobility standpoint, he's going to provide map reading courses to a map reading course to the commissioners. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Nothing else on the agenda, so we're going to close the meeting at 11:04. Something I'm missing? Okay.
Agency reports.
Right. I don't have it. They're not listed on there.
We gave you a truncated agenda. I'm sorry.
You did. That's okay.
So the next agency would be the LoSAN update, which I think Commissioner White covered.
Yeah, the only thing that we're doing this month is meeting at Gold Coast Transit on May 20th. So that's about it.
I guess Gold Coast is the next, or do we have, what's the
No,
next?
we don't do Gold Coast, but we have.
California Association of Governments.
Well, I will do CalVans if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, CalVans, we just elected a new chair. Commissioner Poitras is now chair. CalVans, we're excited about a potential opportunity for a way to do some mobile charging. This is an ongoing problem that CalVans faces. It's great to say that we need to move to zero emission vehicles, but we're talking about vans out in agricultural fields. And it's not just finding the technology in the vans, it's also finding a way to move a way to charge them all around the state. And so we're excited about that. The other thing is CalVans is excited to finally move into its new office. And when they got the keys, they opened it up and the room was full of bees. And so that is the update from the CalVans Van Pool Authority. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
And
How about
Commissioner Johnson, while you're still at it, the CalCog.
Yeah.
You want to
California?
Okay, well, no, actually, first I want to back up and say, I forget who was there, but thank you to VCTC for always having staff there at the CalVans meetings. It's important that Ventura, some of the cities and counties don't really do a very good job showing up for those meetings, and I really appreciate that we all take it very seriously. CalCog, there's really not much to report. We haven't met since the last time I gave an update. There is the Legislative Day meeting happening in about 2 weeks. It is up in Sacramento, and I will not be able to attend. If anybody else would like to attend, maybe you could go in my stead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Coastal Rail Coordinating Council, you have, okay. All right, so then we covered all the committees now.
And thank you, Vice Chair Judge. Sorry for not giving you a full agenda.
No problem. Okay, we're going to adjourn until 9 a.m. Friday, June 7th, 2024, right here, and have a great weekend. Thank you.